Joining me now with more is Bob Lang. He's the founder of Explosive Options. Bob, it's great to have you with us here virtually today, and certainly a boost from these technology names. What does this action mean?
Well, you know, the third and fourth Mag 7 name reporting this week. We'll have two more coming out today after the close. Boy, Meta has really just hit the ball right out of the park here. They beat earnings estimates by about 20%. Revenues were stronger as well. They also guided higher for the next quarter and for the rest of the year, and also guided up their CapEx spending, which is something that many people were looking for Meta to come out and increase their spending as it relates to AI and data centers. So that's a real positive here. The cash flow is extremely strong as well too. They're increasing their buyback and improving efficiency as well too, as their expenses were down considerably, and are looking for less expenses into the end of the year. So all around, just a great number for Meta.
Yeah. What about Microsoft? We've seen that stock rise in the wake of its results as well. The cloud business, Azure up 33%. Is that a strong case for that stock?
Absolutely. I think, Microsoft, I think it was a lot of people were looking for lower numbers from Azure. But if you look at some of the competitors here and something like SAP and even ServiceNow, which is in the cloud area, I think that those two companies that came out with real strong numbers in the last week and a half gave you some clues as to what Microsoft's numbers were going to be like. And I think that Azure numbers, I think that they have started to make the turn. I think they were looking for some down numbers into the end of this year of 25. But I think the company has really righted the ship here, and they're turning around, and I think they're going to post some really strong, robust numbers. Also, Microsoft, much like Meta, has basically a real strong CapEx number, and they didn't lower that at all yesterday on the call. So that's a real positive for the group.
Okay, so I was going to ask about that in terms of the outlook and where we go from here. Given that these results are backward looking, the path forward, I think, really is top of mind for investors, especially in this environment. So what were we able to glean from how much more these stocks and companies might be able to grow?
Well, I think that the markets were telling you that growth could have been stunted here before both of these earnings reports came out. Meta, of course, was dropped at about 22% from the recent highs. Microsoft down close to about 25%, and it told you that the markets were a little bit hesitant, a little bit cautious about their growth prospects going forward. Both these companies were selling at large multiples, and if the market was going to contract, at least in these respective sectors and groups, I think it was going to mean some trouble, and I think these stocks were going to have a difficult time recovering back to those highs. I think those fears were alleviated from these two reports last night, and I think it's onwards and upwards, and there's some resistance ahead, but certainly a lot of people have been short these companies the last week and a half, certainly the beginning of April, and I think that there's some short covering that's going to happen down the road.
Interesting. Okay, so now let's fast forward, of course, to what we'll get after the close tonight. That is Apple and Amazon results. No two tech companies obviously are the same, but these are among the most richly valued names out there. What are your expectations? We'll start with Apple.
Well, I'm expecting to hear some clarity from Apple on their manufacturing process. As you may recall, just a couple of weeks ago, Apple had said they'd moved a large part of their manufacturing from China into India. I want to hear a little bit more about that. I also want to hear a little bit more about services revenue and earnings. This is a huge driver of margin, high margin and profits for Apple. I also want to hear about what they're planning with Apple TV. I think with the strength of Netflix and also with Amazon Prime, we're going to hear a little bit about that later tonight with Amazon. I think Apple is really looking to reinforce their hold on some of these shows that are out there, like a show like Severance, and maybe even something to compete with like Ted Lasso or something like that. So I think that these sort of areas are really of interest to me. I know iPhones are always going to top of mind for people who are looking for growth in that area. I just don't think that this area is growing right now. I think that Apple is looking elsewhere for that growth.
Interesting. Bob, we got to leave it there. Great to get your take. That's Bob Lang. He's the founder of Explosive Options. We appreciate it.